All right, and we are live here at the 12-man post-game show. Slickhawk here for sportsradiokjr.com, up here on YouTube, on Twitter, on Periscope, everything, as we spend the next hour or so breaking down this 44-34 loss Seahawks to the Buffalo Bills. Joined right now by Dick, on this side, by Dick Fain and by our reporter Curtis Crabtree. And Dick, I'm going to start with you. This isn't the type of game at all that we're typical of seeing. The Seahawks losing the turnover battle. Some of the same bugaboos that we've seen all year as far as the defense not being able to stop anybody, those crop up, but it just looked different. And the offense wasn't able to make up for the defensive deficiencies today.
I think the offense was equally as pathetic as the defense today, to be perfectly honest. I mean, those 14 points at the end, you can throw those puppies out. I've been talking all year long about garbage defensive yards and garbage defensive points that the Seahawks defense have been giving up. Buffalo gave up garbage defensive yards and garbage defensive points at the end of that game. Your offense scored 20 points. It was miserable. It was miserable because Brian Schottenheimer, for some reason, had zero confidence in anybody other than Russell Wilson. He didn't even give Collins, Homer, Dallas even a chance in that football game. He said going in, for some reason, against a top 5 secondary in the NFL and a bottom quarter run defense in the NFL, he said going in, I'm not even going to pretend like I'm going to establish balance in this game. Not even pretend. Russell Wilson threw the ball 41 times today. They handed the ball off 15 times. And Russell Wilson is now 4-12 in his career when he throws the ball 40 or more times. It has never worked. It's not going to work. It won't work in the future. If you don't have some semblance of a running game, no matter who your running back is, it's obviously easier with Carson and Hyde. No question about it. But if you don't even try to establish a running game, Russell is going to get killed. 16 knockdowns, which, as Brock Heward mentioned just 20 minutes ago, the most any quarterback has been hit the entire game. The defense is going to get crapped on all week long, Slick. So that's why I'm not focusing on the defense right now. I'm focusing on the offensive game plan, which was absolutely miserable today by a guy who has had an excellent season in Brian Schottenheimer.
Neither offense seemed interested at all in running the football, Curtis. We've got a comment from Chad. Ken Norton got to go. Like you say, Dick, the defense is going to bear a lot of the blame this week as we kind of talk about this and get the listener comments and what you'll see on Twitter and what we'll hear on the phone lines tomorrow. Curtis, how much blame, like Dick talked about, does the offense get in this one?
They had 4 turnovers. 4 turnovers, 0 force from the defense. Yeah, I mean, the offense is part of this too. The only thing on the running part that I'm curious about is when DJ Dallas got popped on that run on the sideline, he got checked out for an injury-wise. How beat up was he out of that to affect his availability? I don't know yet. We haven't talked to Pete Carroll. That'll be coming here shortly, and I will be bailing as soon as he comes to the podium. But if that affected their running back availability to where then you have Homer, who's coming off a bum knee, and Alex Collins, who's been there for 3 practices after not being here for 3 years, I can understand how you get pretty pass heavy at that point, if that's the circumstance they were dealing with. But at the end of the day, they turn the ball over 4 times, and you don't win a whole heck of a lot of games when you lose the turnover battle 4-0. And yes, the defense had its issues. Quentin Dunbar was terrible. Again, same sort of thing as with Dallas. Is that because of his knee injury he's been nursing all season? I don't know, but he was awful at that left cornerback spot in place of Shaq Griffin this week. The zone blitzing stuff they're trying to do is just leaving everything so wide open in the middle of the field. That's not working pretty much at all at the moment. I don't know how much to put on Norton, how much to put on Carroll, because at the end it's his defense overall too, but it seems like something defensively does have to change, but there's absolutely blame to go on the offense for this too.
It was a weird formula because you have more sacks than you've had by far in any game this year, and yet
2013.
And yet it felt like Josh Allen, for the most part, was able to still pick apart the defense. So pass rush has been an issue. We know that. They were able to get some. Carlos Dunlap looked pretty good at times. Jamal Adams had a play or two. But as far as Jamal Adams' overall impact on the game, we'll talk to Hugh Millen. He'll be coming on in a few minutes, Dick. But how did you feel about his impact and his return today?
Mixed, obviously. The biggest play of the game in my mind, and the play I'm probably going to remember more than any other play, is the defensive illegal contact play. I mean, you are getting the ball back down 7. in the early stages of the fourth quarter. And, you freeze time right there at the second that I'm clapping my hands after that sack before I see the flag. I'm thinking if you froze time right there and asked me, you got to put your house on which team you think is going to win that game, I think I might put it on the Hawks. Down 7, getting the ball back with all the momentum, 9-10 minutes left to go in the game, I might put it on the Hawks there. I think that illegal contact play, and again, that goes on the coaches as well. I mean, Ryan Neal is blitzing on that play. Why would you have Ryan Neal blitzing on that play and Jamal Adams in coverage versus Jamal Adams blitzing on the play and Ryan Neal in coverage? I'm only a middle school, novice football X's and O's guy. I'm not Hugh Breedlove Millen, but we'll have to ask him on that. But that to me just seems like common sense that if you're going to bring heat on 3rd and long, you don't have your best pass rusher bringing heat. You have one of your worst coverage guys in coverage. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, we talked about it all week long. This was the best wide receiver tandem that you've faced since Atlanta, and definitely a quarterback that can burn you. I guess the game planning was to get his feet moving, but the Bills in the first half, they were really effective against that Seahawks blitz. And it seems, Curtis, the Seahawks defense isn't able to stop a good offensive unit unless they're actually getting home with a blitz and sacking the quarterback. Otherwise, it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, whatever the game plan was, sort of the game, Buffalo was ready for it and certainly beat them pretty soundly early. Like I was mentioning earlier, the zone blitzing stuff is just not working. When they're bringing pressure with 5 and then dropping 6 into zones, there's just not enough guys to cover the space. And if the guys aren't getting home and affecting the passer, which most of the time they're not, then you've got guys in wide open spots. If there's anybody not sitting in a spot correctly, there's tons of green turf out there for guys to run across. So that's just not seeming to sync up very well for what they're trying to do at the moment. And then when you get in the situations where they're playing more man and you've got Quentin Dunbar lining up 15 yards off the line of scrimmage and just letting some easy completions hop in front of him and then being lackadaisical about going to tackle the ball carrier once he has the ball, it's like, what are you doing? So there's issues on that side of the ball too. I mean, this was not a good game for Seattle. Period. The 4 turnovers. When was the last time Russell Wilson has a game like that where he has 4 turnovers, 2 lost fumbles, 2 interceptions? Not a good day for him, overall, in that regard. The lack of having Chris Carson, I think, really showed up today. The fact that they didn't have that running game to turn to. And, when they are so pass heavy, then the Bills can just dial up pressures and come at you, and that let Russell get hit quite a bit too. So it was just not a good game for Seattle in pretty much any way you look at it.
I want to talk about the first of those turnovers, Dick, because the offense got off to a slow start points-wise, a 3-and-out to start the game, the touchdown. But they come back down. They march the length of the field, 4th and goal. You want them to go for it. And I like the aggressiveness that they're willing to go for it and put it in Russ's hands in that case. But nothing develops on the play. He throws the interception. It was a huge momentum swing. And then on top of the fact that you didn't get any points out of that, and I think – you talk about the Beasley play, the Jamal Adams, the illegal contact. If there was a pivotal play that I felt in the game, I thought even early as it was then, and the point swing with that not being able to convert a touchdown down there.
I think you're right as far as just kind of setting the tone for who's commanding in the game. I think you're exactly right. I mean, my take on the Adams penalty was just because it was just such a pop of the balloon. I mean, we had this momentum just build and get back in the game, and the Adams penalty just popped the balloon, right there. But your point well taken. I mean, that was a huge, kind of initial momentum boost to the Bills because, if you're Buffalo, you got the big win over the Patriots last week, kind of exercised some demons, but still, you're probably thinking in the back of your mind, can we really beat a team like Seattle? I mean, we're the Buffalo Bills. We have yet to really do anything as far as, in the whole grand scheme of something big in the NFL. We have yet to do anything. I mean, we made the playoffs last year and got bounced, and that's it. And you need wins like this over tried and true, tested elite teams in the NFL. And I think, to your point, plays like that give young teams and teams that haven't really done anything before that hope and that belief that, hey, yeah, we can beat these guys. We can do this, Whereas, if Seattle gets that touchdown early and it's just kind of would have been 7-7 at that point, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, it would, maybe we would have gone down the road of, hey, kind of a typical Seattle game, slow start, but they get a nice 3 to 7 point win in this one.
Doing the 12-man post-game show presented by Steel. Steel dealerships are independently owned and operated, and with over 10,000 dealers nationwide, there's one near you, so support a small business in your community. Visit your local Steel dealer today. Real Steel. Find yours. And in just a moment, we'll be joined by Hugh Breedlove Millen. Before we get Hugh in here, one more for you, Curtis, before the post-game press conference from Pete Carroll. And this is just kind of an overall state of the Seahawks, because you look at their wins over the last few years and how they've come, and there have been some 10-6 seasons in there. This is a year that's supposed to be different. We're talking about them with the potential of a number one seed, but it seems like over these last few years, their wins have come against some subpar and lower tier teams. A lot of the time, it seems like when they face a top team, like I would call Buffalo a top team right now in the AFC, that's when they struggle. Today was a real opportunity to kind of show that they've turned a corner, and Seattle is one of the elite teams in the NFL that weren't able to do it against Buffalo today. And really, I mean, it almost kind of got pantsed.
Well, Buffalo was looking to do the same. They kind of got over their hurdle with the Patriots a week ago, and then they go take out, a Seattle team this weekend to show that they are kind of for real here too. They had that weird stretch of games where they played on the Tuesday night, right, against Kansas City because of everything that happened. And they had a really bad weather game in there as well. That kind of screwed with their offensive output. I think that might have been against the Jets. But for Seattle, this was just, a complete dud. And you don't see too many of those for Seattle generally. But Pete's coming to the podium right now, so I will bail on you guys and leave it to you. See you later.
All right, Curtis.
All right, appreciate it. Dick, just kind of continuing on with that thought as we bring Hugh in now. It's a team in Seattle that, for over the last few years, they have kind of beat up on weaker competition. And Hugh, thanks for joining us here on the 12th Man Postgame Show presented by Steel. Not a great effort on either side of the ball, really. 4 turnovers for the Seahawks. Just wondering if your initial thoughts on the game, Hugh.
Well, I'm really excited about where Seattle is, but it's a little bit of a Wizard of Oz situation for Seattle today. I don't think they played with a lot of heart in the first half, and Pete Carroll certainly underscored that to the telecast. And in terms of the message was that they've just got to pick up the intensity. I thought there was a palpable increase in intensity in terms of their effort and how they got after Josh Allen. But then when they made things close, the pivotal drive was when they pulled it to within 27-20, and you get the great coverage on the kickoff. So it's 1st and 10 at the 18. This is there's 2 remaining plays in the third quarter. You got plenty of time, and obviously you're only down a touchdown. And from that point, what had got them to that point was an increase in intensity in the third quarter. And you saw Jamal Adams, he's over there imploring Pete Carroll that, hey, just let me do this, keep the blitzing going and what have you. And so at that juncture, now referencing again the Wizard of Oz, they didn't play without brains in that particular drive. I mean, they were so hell-bent on playing macho football and blitzing. The first play was 20 yards out the gate from the 18-yard line on a screen pass. They just routine slow screen to left. Then Adams gets beat. He's in one-on-one coverage with Beasley, and he totally loses him. He's way too aggressive at the line of scrimmage. His jam technique was awful. So Beasley beats him, and he all but grabbed it. I mean, Beasley was open by 5 yards against Adams. And that was a 25-yarder. So you've pulled within 27-20 of all the momentum. The special teams gave you great field position. And in 2 plays, you've just given up 45 yards because you're way too aggressive. And then they had the penalty with Adams, on the sack. And then they follow that up with another blitz. And they Buffalo just ran a tunnel screen. It was as if Buffalo just said, okay, you guys are all hopped up. we have a TV monitor in the press box, which is actually true.
Mhm.
And they probably had a sense that Adams was trying to direct the game towards. You guys got me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. You guys probably got the sense that Adams was trying to direct the game towards this hyper aggressive blitz mentality, and Buffalo just sensed that, and they started just going screen after screen, and you still have to defend the screen. Even when you're going to blitz, you have to turn and recognize it, and the defensive linemen have got to get in on the play, and so I just thought that Seattle, they lost their wits. Strike that. They didn't lose their wits. Again, they didn't play with heart in the first half, and at the most critical time in that transition between the third and the fourth quarter, that was the drive of the game, really. They didn't play with much brains.
And it's interesting because we see this team play time and time again. And so right before that point, when they closed it within 7, you thought, okay, here we go. We got a chance. And now they get the ball back down 14, sure. But with a little bit of momentum, they're with just over 7 minutes to go, Hugh, you figure maybe they're going to march down. There's a lot of time here, and they can salvage this thing, get it into overtime. But it doesn't go that way. What did you see on that drive that resulted in turning the ball over deep in their own territory?
Well, we talk a lot about blueprint, right? And in terms of when a team is successful against another team, does the rest of the league show it? And I think right now for Seattle, the mistakes they made in protection in the Arizona game in overtime, when they got to midfield and they had, by anybody's account, the probable chance to win once they were 1st and 10 inside Arizona, all they had to do was kick a field goal at that juncture, and they just completely foiled their pass protection. And it's a real, I wouldn't say it's simple because Seattle would handle it, but what you're seeing is this double A gap, bluff pressure. And so you have linebackers that are, the term is mugging up. They're getting up in the gap between the center and the guards. And from that position, you have to do one of two things. You have to squeeze the guard, have the guard come down into that A gap, or you have to have a running back step up and grab one of those A gaps. So the direction of the centers is pivotal. Usually the running back's going to go the opposite direction. But when they back out, you've got to be able to then adjust on the fly and still get picked up. Russell Wilson took a sack in that drive because at that juncture, Seattle was still down just 14, right? That was 27. It was 41-27.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it didn't look as good as it did at the end of the third quarter, down only 27-20. That was the pivotal drive, but it was still salvageable by Russell Wilson standards, right?
Yeah.
But you're probably going to get 2 possessions, you're gonna have to score 2 touchdowns, which Russell's done many times. But they give up the sack to take them right out, and the sack and the fumble, right? And so you've got to be able to when that on the right side of the offensive line, when that linebacker drops out of the right side A gap, that's the gap between the center and the right guard. There's 2 terms you should be familiar with. One is squeeze. That's where the guard comes down. And then the other is fan. The fan, the tackle has got to fan out to the blitzer on that, in that situation. When they drop out, you can quickly just, hey, okay, we're going to squeeze inside, that he's not coming. Now can we fan outside and let the tackle get his hat on that edge blitzer? And they didn't. And that created the sack and the fumble. And at that juncture, they kicked the field goal at 17, the game's over. Absolutely. It's just an exercise to get the clock to 00. So I think that again, not playing smart in that pivotal time of the game in the fourth quarter is what was their undoing.
Hugh, I'd like to get your take on Brian Schottenheimer's game plan going in, because it was apparent, at least to me, it looked apparent by the run-pass imbalance that he wasn't even going to try to run the ball today. I mean, and do you feel like when the Bills have arguably a top 5 secondary, and we know statistically they have a bottom quartile run defense as far as yards allowed and yards per carry allowed, do you just think that he had absolutely no confidence in the stable of running backs he had, or what do you think was the reason behind the imbalance? Because it wasn't like they were 4 scores down and and they couldn't run anymore. There was 3 quarters of that game they could have run the football.
Yeah, I think there's room for some criticism there. I wouldn't hitch all my wagon in terms of my impression of the games on that. I do think that DJ Dallas is a good bit less than Chris Carson. Travis Homer, saw third and one, fourth and one, getting stoned. I believe it was third and one early on, and so Homer's not going to be an inside guy, and so I think they just feel like they're playing with the JV squad at running back, and so that probably feeds into, hey, we've got the MVP of the league, presumptive MVP, as so has been said, and let's let him cook. And so, and I think in the aftermath, when you start to let the game get away from you, it's hard to determine, okay, can we still try and keep with the run? I think if Chris Carson was in there, I think they would have been running more.
I know you're up there in the hotel room. One thing I wanted to go back to real quick. I don't know whose dog was that. Was Dick or that was yours, Hugh?
We've got a puppy.
Is that the puppy there?
Yeah, you're just gonna have to roll. So
no, I love it.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I wanted to go back to what you had said before about their double A gap pressure. Were you seeing from that what we saw kind of at the end in the overtime of the Cardinals game? Because I remember all three of us talked about the concern that other teams might try to copy that blueprint of the way they were blitzing in that overtime. Did you see a little bit of that bleed into today?
Yeah, as I mentioned, that's why I think that the blueprint was there. And, it's interesting what teams learn from. And so, yeah, that idea that you put linebackers in the gaps and threaten blitzes, and then sometimes you come and sometimes you drop off. That's something that Seattle has had trouble with. I try, give you a little detail about how you do it. We can talk as much in detail as you want, but it'd be better with a telestrator. But the other part of it is as coaches make adaptations and learn blueprints. I think there was a pivotal section of the game against the 49ers. I made mention it during the week in the shows. The second play of the game for the 49ers offensively, they went into an empty left formation. On the slot to the right, they had Brandon Ayuk. Correct me if I'm mispronouncing his name, the rookie from Arizona State. And by formation, they got him matched up against Jordan Brooks. Second play of the game, it was either 18 or 19 yards. I think 18 yards. Doesn't matter. Then they came back the next play, empty, and they had George Kittle wide open on an in-breaking route. It would have been about 15-yard gain. Kind of a little bit out in front. Kittle probably dropped it, or it could have been a better pass. And then it was like Kyle Shanahan went back into that mode of, I want to put Kyle Juszczyk in the game, and I want to play smash mouth and stomp, crush, kill, and they squeezed the formation back. And as I said, I talked last week on the shows, I said, I think that San Francisco made a mistake in that regard. I think they should have explored the empty set more and spread Seattle out. Well, Buffalo today did quite a lot of that, and obviously to great effect. And when Seattle wasn't there emotionally, that was an emotional no-show in the first half defensively.
Yeah.
And in years past, we would have gone straight to the 10 a.m. start. But I think Seattle has been so good in so many games in the East Coast. I mean, they're setting records. So if we're going to criticize them today, I think that we have to parenthetically laud them for all of their accomplishments in that arena in years past. You say, well, they're pros, they should get up. Well, in theory, that's true. In reality, that doesn't happen. We see so many teams from the West Coast come out and they have a hard time out in the 10 o'clock time zone. I thought in that first half, whether that was it or something else, Seattle just didn't have it dialed up emotionally. A noticeable jump in their emotion. And for example, defensive players, they get graded on their loaf and their hustle, right? They expect the hustle. And if you get a loaf, it's a minus on your grade sheet. And one of the ways they determine that is they say, do we see a change in speed at the ball? Like if you're just jogging, and then all of a sudden you have a chance to make a tackle, and then all of a sudden they see you accelerate. Let's say, well, if we see a noticeable acceleration when you're near the ball, then we know you were loafing prior to that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's the reference, and I think that was what we saw for Seattle in the third quarter. That there was a noticeable, to carry out the analogy, a noticeable burst.
So a couple things, Hugh. One, you're saying it was more effort versus scheme change that made the defense better in the third quarter? And then secondly, on that fateful Jamal Adams interference call or illegal contact call, why do you think he was back and Ryan Neal was the one blitzing there?
Well, a lot of times that'll be, I'll go back and look at it closer, but a lot of times you're just in a case where you don't want to telegraph it. There's more of an element of disguise that maybe they were directing the protection scheme to 33. And so if you leave him back, then you're going to get more of an element of surprise, but he just got flat footed. It looked like it was zero coverage. I'm gonna have to check it again, but if there was a free safety, if he didn't have a free safety help, that's a tough matchup for him, but he was just flat footed. It's hard for those safeties against a wide receiver to just anchor their heels at 8 yards and have in-breaking routes, out-breaking routes, and vertical routes. That three-way go, it's hard to defend, and he's just overmatched. That's not to the strength of his game, but it's a recurring theme for me. To me, I said it when they acquired him. I think they gave up too much for Jamal Adams, and he's a great player, but they have got to figure out how to take a great player and use him from an impact standpoint. When he's getting pressured, now you saw him get a sack where he blew up a tight end. He can do that on occasion, and he can certainly blow up running backs, but they're investing a lot to try and scheme him to get open gaps. He doesn't beat linemen. Anybody who tells you that Jamal Adams beats linemen in a blitz, they're either lying to you or they don't know. They haven't studied it. It's a myth. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you saw the one time where he's matched up against the Bills left tackle. He didn't even, he just stopped, he aborted his rush altogether.
Yeah. And
so, you see these historic numbers that you have the magnitude of this acquisition is just continually, are you kidding me? The third defensive player in NFL history, or at least over the last 35 years, I gotta check that to garner 2 first rounders and then throw in, Seattle gave up more for Jamal Adams than the Bears gave up for Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
And so you say, okay, if you're going to do that, you have to have the impact. Well, the one portion of the game that he had the impact was the middle of the third quarter. Beautiful sack. There was clearly that he was raising the intensity. And so there's a leadership aspect. There's the production aspect. And you're saying, okay, through that little window of the game, yes, that's what you acquired Jamal Adams for. Now he goes to the sideline. He says, come on, let's keep going. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. And then now Seattle just like recklessly just says, yeah, let's do what Jamal Adams says. Let's just blitz. And Buffalo's just going, you fools. You fools. You're so susceptible to screen pass. And then, they go 83 yards for a touchdown at the most pivotal time. And guess who was at the center of the worst place? Jamal Adams.
Dick and Hugh, both of you guys, one last one before you go. It's for both of you. I just want a real quick answer to this because, Dick, you alluded to it before, and Hugh, I want your thoughts. All offseason, everybody wanted Russell Wilson to assume more of the responsibility, more of the offense, do more. In today's game plan, was Russell Wilson asked to do too much? Dick, you first.
Absolutely, without question. I think Russell Wilson's been asked to do too much numerous times this year. In fact, I think the best balance that we've seen is in the first 3 games of the season, and I think we've gotten away from that. Now, being fair, as Hugh mentioned, if Carson was here or even Hyde was here, we may have seen a different balance, but they weren't, and I just wish that they would have at least tried earlier in the game to get one of those guys going, whether it be Dallas or Homer, get one of those guys going. Hell, Alex Collins touched the ball once. He went 8 yards. I mean, he touched the ball one time. And there just wasn't an effort at all. And maybe it was panic. Maybe he was thinking they were down 2 scores. But, heck, they were down 2 scores with 35, 40 minutes left to go in the football game. There was plenty of time. And so, absolutely, the let Russ cook crowd, they've taken a beating the last couple weeks, and guess who else has taken a beating the last couple weeks? Russell Wilson has taken a beating the last couple weeks because of it.
Hugh, did they put too much on Russell's shoulders today with that game plan?
Well, I think, first of all, you have to distinguish between the game plan and then how the game evolved. And I'm sure that Schottenheimer and Carroll will tell you that when you're down the way they were, that there's an inclination to start throwing the ball more. But yeah, I think that they need to get something more out of the running game. And I think they also, when you ask that question, Slick, I'm also thinking in terms of his portion of the passing game. You say, well, he's a quarterback. He's the central figure in the passing game. Of course he is, but he's not the only figure. And he was asked to do too much in terms of trying to survive the onslaught and the onrush. Seattle's got to pick up. They've got to get back to it. It's all solved in walkthrough. They got to do more walkthrough on their blitz pickup and getting guys hat on a hat and sorting out these. I don't call them exotic blitz, but they can be tough if you don't handle it. And it seems like defensive coordinators are waiting to the fourth quarter, at the most critical time to really launch these. I don't know if they feel like there's a fatigue that's set in or what have you, but at the most critical time, they're pulling out their best pitch. And so Seattle's got to get a handle on that. This is really frustrating to watch these kind of scores. Both defensively and then to watch Russell have to absorb this lack of pass protection.
All right, well, I'm sure you guys have a lot more thoughts. We'll hear from both of you tomorrow, obviously, 7:20. Hugh, you'll be on the morning show. Dick Fain tomorrow at 3 o'clock on with Softy and Dick. Appreciate you guys coming on the 12-man post-game show presented by Steel. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Rock and roll. Thanks.
As we bring in Jason Puckett, who looks like he may have been kidnapped in the back of a van or some type situation. So, Puck, thanks for coming on to us here in the virtual sports bar. All right, got the whole family there. Everything is going on. A bad loss, man, 44-34, where they didn't really look good on either side of the ball. 4 turnovers. Just a couple initial thoughts from you about how this went for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you guys just said was spot on. I mean, there was a clunker. It was a clunker from the get-go. I mean, the second that they had the return back, that was a deep return, and then it just kind of swelled from there. I don't know. I mean, the cross-country trip, I think teams just, tend to have one of these games every year, right? Doesn't matter who you are, where nothing works. And that's not, I think, any type of referendum on the season or anything, or I think a panic, but I just think it happens to good teams. I mean, Green Bay had it a couple of weeks ago against Tampa Bay. They got boat raced.
Yeah.
And they got embarrassed on national TV. So, I mean, I don't think it's time to panic about anything, but there are issues that they obviously had today that continue to be the issues all season long. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, their pass rush has been the number one issue all year long, and it obviously showed up today. I mean, it was 7-on-7 out there. I mean, they had nothing all day long. It was awful.
Which is weird to say in a game when they got the most sacks they've had in a game since the year 2013. So that, I mean, those two things don't jive up. But I mean, if you look at the sports page tomorrow and you open up and look at the numbers, you wonder. But if you watch the game and how the game went, you know there was a much bigger issue there as far as consistency in pass rush and Josh Allen a lot of the time, having all day to throw. As we bring in Chuck Powell from the morning show as well, and reunite Chuck and Puck as we always like to do whenever we can. Chuck, we were just I was talking about with Hugh and with Dick. It's a game where neither team was really interested in running the football. 17 rushes for one team, 15 for the other. Kind of an odd game plan when we knew Buffalo was a little bit susceptible to the run. They put all the game on Russell Wilson's shoulders, and they have more turnovers for Russell Wilson I can imagine them having in a long time.
It kind of felt like one of those games where I've seen it enough, where Russell is kind of over on the sideline. We're down by 21, but I love this. This is fun. I'm going to come back and win.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like that for a long time. But I give Buffalo and their coaching staff a lot of credit. I mean, they didn't come out pretending anything. Seattle's weakness is trying to stop the pass. We don't have a strong running game, and they just came after them, and they didn't relent. I think they only had 3 carries in the entire first half, rushing carries. So I commend them for that. And then they didn't take their foot completely off the gas in the second half. You see so many teams do this where, we've got the big lead, let's just run the clock. Buffalo did a little bit of that, but they didn't take their foot completely off the gas, and I think that it might have been the difference in the game ultimately.
Puckett, I mean, it was almost a tale of two halves. I mean, there were so many opportunities in the second half where you think, okay, now they've got it going a little bit. They cut the lead down to 7. Now Russell is going to do his thing, and we've seen this time and time and time again. But there was always a big play from Buffalo. Seattle wasn't ever able to establish momentum and hang on to it. And I just wonder, if this is going to be something indicative in the future, or if it's just Buffalo having a really good day.
Well, I mean, I think Buffalo, I mean, to Chuck's point, I mean, they had a really good day. I mean, they're a good football team, and they had a good game plan. The quarterback, and again, remember, I apologized earlier this year about Allen. So you can't
Right.
hold it against me anymore.
Right, I got your one
Allen.
apology. Yeah,
I got the apology. He had a really good game, but I think most quarterbacks are going to have a good game when they can just sit back there and have the ball all game long. I mean, there was just nothing. I mean, they got a little bit more in the second half, but again, as you keep blitzing left and right, and I think he was talking about earlier, you will get victimized on it. I'd love to know the rationale, late in the game when it was 3rd and 16, why you decided to blitz on the screen pass, the little tunnel screen. I just don't understand why you would do that. They have been throwing that screen at you every time in those situations. You have to know that as a coaching staff that's coming. So, I mean, I don't think there's not one unit that had a good game today.
Yeah.
Coaching, special teams, I mean, all of it. And, the offensive line, I thought for the first time all year played bad. For the whole game. I mean, you can go back to the Arizona game in overtime, but I think overall they played poorly. I think too, in reference, I know you didn't ask us this question, but your last question to those guys, did they put too much on Russell Wilson's shoulders? I don't know. I mean, what else do they can't rely on DJ Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, maybe more for Alex Collins, but I mean, come on, Alex Collins has been out of football for 2 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, this was going to be all Russell Wilson today because they don't have their 2 top backs, their top 3 running backs. So, yeah, I mean, I had expected him to do everything today. This isn't about the offense to me. I know they stumbled. This is, again, this defense cannot get off the field. And I think what we saw last week was just simply a mirage in that game.
It's weird, Chuck, because, we all wanted Carlos Dunlap. He comes in. He was effective at times, certainly. The pass rush at times was effective. Again, on a day when you have the most sacks that you've had for your team since, I think, Curtis Hill's 2013, you come away feeling like the pass rush didn't do enough. And I think that's just more indicative of the secondary, because the only way it seems like the defense is going to stop a good quarterback is by putting him on his ass. And other than that, he's going to carve them up through the air.
Yeah, I think the sack total, even though it's something to, I guess, be encouraged by, I think it was misleading. I think Chuck's right. I think the game was established in the first half because you couldn't get to Josh Allen. But this was the first game this year where I started to wonder, man, are our cornerbacks worse than our pass rush? Because Diggs was just open and Brown was just open by acreage in that first half and even into the second half. And so I don't know, maybe Quentin Dunbar was banged up and he was the only option because Shaquille's not available to you. But that's a big concern. I mean, he is not near the player we thought we were getting from the Washington Redskins.
One more from you.
He was.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, he was terrible. I mean,
terrible.
I don't know if he's got to pretend like he's robbing somebody in Miami at a video games, and gold chains and cash like they're at a dice game. Maybe if he had that sense of urgency. He's been terrible all year long. I mean, all year long. He's been a massive disappointment. I remember all the talk, how excited I think we all were when they acquired him. That his whatever his rankings were, he was right up there with Richard Sherman. He's an eyelash talent of Richard Sherman. I mean, he's awful.
Yeah, I put Flowers. Once Griffin's back, I'm going with Flowers. Dunbar's got a lot of proving to do to all of to everybody.
Yeah. One more Puckett before we let you go on your road trip there. By
the way, which side of the car are you driving on?
I'm driving. I'm not driving, Chuck.
Oh.
Can you imagine if I was driving?
Yes, I can.
What am I missing? What's the mirror effect that I'm missing? Is what I was wondering. Oh, I see.
Now we got
there's the fam. All right, go. There's a go Cougs.
What about the Cougs? What about a big big victory for the Cougs yesterday, huh? Never a
Yeah,
tap.
that's nice.
Not
There you
bad.
go.
Not
Pulled
bad.
it out.
Huh?
Didn't Coug it. Enjoy that for the next
gonna-
6 days.
We're gonna
I got something for you.
we're gonna stomp your. Well, we're gonna stomp you guys next week. You'll have
Okay,
no
all right.
answer for the Hawaiian sensation, Jaden DeLora. No answer.
Hawaiian Russell Wilson. Defensively, I mean, the conversations, Puckett, and this will be the last one before I let you go. The conversations once again are going to be around Ken Norton, around this defensive scheme. We do blame pie tomorrow. How much blame are you putting on him for the entirety of the loss?
Well, a good chunk of it. I mean, I know everyone. The default is it's Pete's defense, which is it's right. It's he architects the defense, but the guy's paid to be the coordinator. I mean, he is, and so he shall be responsible for not getting his team in position to play and make plays in certain calls. I go back to that 3rd and 16 play, which was a key play in the game. You should have been off the field, and you decided to send the house on 3rd and 16. I don't understand that call. And I'd like to hear. I mean, he never talks after game. I'd like to hear about him from that. I don't know. I mean, we've talked about Dan Quinn all the time. Ken Norton has never been a coordinator of a good defense ever. In time with the Raiders, now here, there's got to be a correlation to that.
I thought that was the biggest play of the game.
Yeah,
that was the biggest play of the game. I mean, they were within 7 at that point.
Yep.
You got him at 3rd and 16, and he just slipped in there and off to the races.
All right, Puckett. Well, I'll let you get back to your whole family trip. I don't know if you're going. Is this back out to Montana, or what are you guys
No,
doing?
we're just right. We watched the game. We were at a friend's house, watched the game down in your. We were down in T-Town.
Oh,
Now we're just driving back up, and obviously, that one was excited about it.
Oh,
she was
sure.
real fired up.
Yeah, it's a big day.
All right,
big day. Well, appreciate it. Talk to you tomorrow at 10
Have
o'clock.
a good one.
Audio.
All right, Puck. All right, so as the 12-man post-game show presented by Steel Dealers rolls along, Chuck Powell with me now. A couple more guests to come along here in the next 15, 20 minutes as we kind of wrap up the show, Chuck. You mentioned right there the pivotal point late in the game, which is the drive where you have a 3rd down, you think you got him stopped, you get the illegal contact on Jamal Adams against Cole Beasley. How about the pivotal turning point early in the game, though? Because you have a Seahawks team that got 3 and out their first possession, but then they march right down their next possession. You think they're okay, here we go, we're cooking, we're going to get some points out of this. 4th and goal, they go for it. It's aggressive. I think we all wanted them to go for it. I was happy that they did. They cut themselves off to one corner of the end zone, though, with pretty much all their players, and Russell Wilson throws the interception, nothing there. So, I mean, that was the other pivotal point I thought in the game, and that really kind of that set the mark for Buffalo and set the tone.
Okay, so since you brought it up, I'm gonna complain about this.
Okay,
that was 3rd down. Nobody's been able to prove it otherwise. They screwed up the downs, the chain gang.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was 3rd down. It wasn't 4th down. And
I didn't even notice.
The Seahawks even called timeout, and I'm like, oh, Pete figured it out. He's going to tell them. And then they come back. Unless I'm missing something, because I went down the stats. I went to the website that showed various websites that showed the play-by-play.
Sure.
That's a big difference between 3rd and 3 making that call and 4th and 3. It's a big difference in what kind of throw Russell Wilson makes. On 4th down, obviously, you're going to try to squeeze something in. On 3rd down, you got another life left over. So, okay, I might be entirely wrong, but I haven't seen any evidence to prove that.
No,
I think they
realize.
screwed up the chains and the downs because there was the DJ Dallas run out of bounds for like 9 yards.
Okay.
And it should have been 2nd and 1. And then there was the little flip pass to Hollister, which should have got you a 1st down. Well, for some reason, they called the Dallas play 2nd down.
Mm-hmm.
And they called it 1st down.
1st down. So DJ Dallas right end for 10 yards, 1st down.
Okay.
So it's 1st and 10 at the 14. Then you have the flip to Hollister for 1 yard.
Yeah.
That made it 2nd and 9. Then incomplete. No, I'm sorry. Then to get to Greg Olson down to the 5. Okay, so it's 3rd down. On 3rd down, now it says here Travis Homer ran up the middle. I'm trying to remember a Travis Homer run on.
Oh,
3rd
maybe I missed that.
Yeah, I don't. But now you got me questioning it. Now I'm trying to remember.
All right, now I got to look it up.
Let's say if Homer, they ran with Homer. So
Maybe they did. Maybe
that
that's
would've
what I
been-
missed.
or maybe they're making it up entirely. I don't know to make it jive. But yeah, if that's right, then that would be, monumental. Obviously, it's fourth down there, and so you excuse the pass because you got to get a pass off. So
Okay, here's the thing. All right, so 2nd and 1, Wilson play action to Hollister for 2 yards. So that's the first down, right?
Yeah.
And then you go Wilson quick to Olsen for 8 yards on first down, which puts it at 2nd and 2. Homer run up the middle should have been 3rd and 1.
No, I'm sorry. It was first, according to this, when Wilson flipped it to Hollister, that was on first down. So he got a yard and made it 2nd and 9. And then he threw it to Olsen that got them down to the 5. So that left it 3rd and 1.
Okay. All right, maybe I did screw it up then. I don't know. I got to go back and look at it. But anyway,
Yeah.
To your point, I want points. You obviously needed points. I don't have a big issue with the Seahawks, going, me. I want them to go for it on 4th down.
Sure.
And it turns out that you would have needed them at some point. But obviously to come away with 0 at that point, that's why I thought my downs situation, I'm like, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, this is not just some small deal. I mean, at some point somebody posted on Twitter, showed me the score. And I'm like, I get it. They've been outplayed, for the entire first half.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a big difference,
That was a huge turning point in the game.
Yeah, there's a major difference between how Russell approaches a 3rd down play versus a 4th down play. And then there's a huge difference between it being we've been outplayed the entire first half and trailed by 10 versus trailing by 17.
No question.
Monumental difference. Yeah. So that's why I was trying to figure it out on the fly, and maybe my math was completely off. But nonetheless, big play in the game. I think they're going to have to do that, though, Slick, more often than not. I mean, until they can figure out this defense, they got to figure out when can we score points.
Yeah.
And the idea that this offense can settle for field goals, particularly when you have maybe the most clutch player in the league playing your quarterback position, I think you've got to trust him more often than not to try to get you 7 rather than accepting 3. As you and I have discussed in the past, you get back to having the best defense in the National Football League, then you take 3 points.
Sure.
But we are a long way away from that defense. No question about it.
Yeah, but Russell Wilson obviously wasn't at his best today. Dick likes to bring up, and he certainly did today, the amount of dropbacks that he had versus runs that they tried to attempt. Neither team was interested in running the football today. Mm-hmm. And so you figure you have the better quarterback, that should weigh out. But with Seattle's inability to stop anybody, there was even more pressure put on Russell Wilson, and it was clear Buffalo's game plan defensively was just pin their ears back and come after him, relentlessly, and they put him back. What was the record? They showed up on the screen where the most times that a quarterback had been knocked down, I think, in a game. So, an offensive line that's played well this year, and we've commended them for that. I don't know if they weren't ready for it or he wasn't ready for it. It was just there was just no fear of running the football from the Buffalo Bills.
But the Buffalo Bills also showed you can win games. You can put up 44 points without a running game if you've got the right quarterback. So, I get it. And Chris Carson should alleviate some of that going forward once he's healthy. Don't forget we're down to 3rd and 4th string running backs that are trying to get a running game established. This team should be able to win with Russell throwing the football. But obviously you're giving the defense an advantage when they don't fear your run. And I thought Tremaine Edmonds played a really good game. And I've been wondering where he's been the entire season for them. They have not been nearly as good defensively as they were a year ago. And maybe you saw them return a little bit to glory here today.
Softy, welcome me into the 12th Man Postgame Show presented by Steel. We were just talking about 2 teams really that were one-dimensional today, and in what's not the normal circumstances, Russell Wilson ends up being the lesser of the 2 when you bring in both passing games. What did you see today?
Yeah. Well, more of the same, right? I mean, it's no secret why this football team has lost the 2 games they've lost. Number one, their quarterback has 7 turnovers in the 2 losses combined, which is a staggering number. And then number 2, they can't play defense. I mean, for whatever reason, Arizona was about not getting home to Kyler Murray. This game today was about not being able to cover at all in the secondary. And I think that that's a major concern for this football team. You know, look, I mean, if Shaquille Griffin is the key to this secondary being able to cover people, then he's about to earn a $25 million contract over the offseason when his deal expires. I don't think he's that good. So this is not just about Shaquille Griffin. You know, I said this on Twitter. I'll say it again, that you've got Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Jaron Reed, Poona Ford. When he's healthy, Shaquille Griffin. This defense isn't elite, right? But they shouldn't be this awful. There's no reason why a defense that has names like that should be this bad. This was the most points ever allowed in the Pete Carroll era in 10 years in Seattle. They have not allowed, by my count, guys, this many points since week 16 against the Packers in 2009 when they gave up 48 to Aaron Rodgers and Jim Mora got fired 2 weeks later. So to me, this is totally unacceptable for this defense to be this bad. They can't cover. They can't break up passes. They're tentative as hell. Quentin Dunbar, Chuck, I agree with you. He looks awful. He looks nothing like the guy that we thought we were getting here in Seattle. They're just missing either A, coaching for these guys on defense to get the best out of them, or they're missing more playmakers. And if the problem is playmakers, then they're going to be in trouble because they're not going to add any playmakers between now and the end of the year. I mean, it was a miracle they were able to get Kendricks and Dunlop and Snacks Harrison, for God's sakes, on this defense. So, look, I'm hopeful that when those guys all come back and when they all play together, they'll be better. Clearly, it depends on the matchup. The matchup with Jimmy Garoppolo was a much better matchup for them versus Kyler Murray versus Josh Allen. But you know, I'm just thinking in your mind's eye, how often do you see a corner or a safety stepping in front of a wide receiver or a tight end and smacking the ball away? You never see guys making plays like that. I mean, Quentin Dunbar, to me, looked like the guy didn't even want to be there at times in this game. Tentative, hesitant, no willingness, ability to close on a play, even after a catch is made. So I can't tell you how disgusted I was watching Quentin Dunbar play in this game today. He was horrible, absolutely horrible. And you know what? For Josh Allen, you know what Dunbar was? He was a freaking binky. When you're like 7 or 8 years old, you have your blanket that when you're freaking out, there's a lightning storm. You're sad. You're scared. You're upset. You grab your binky. Everything feels just great. Josh Allen's in trouble. Hey, where's Quentin Dunbar? I'll go his way and pick up an easy 25 or 30 yards. So he was sucking the life out of me the entire game.
Yeah. And Chuck, to his point, I mean, when they brought in Quentin Dunbar, you hear he's a physical cornerback. We don't know how physically Shaq's played in the past, but they haven't had – look, when they brought in Quandre Diggs, you thought maybe they're going to go back to the old formula of getting in guys' faces, jamming them off the line. I saw Jamal Adams jam a receiver once. Other than that, there hasn't been much of that, and they're just giving all this cushion, Chuck. It's stunning to me that a Pete Carroll defense, their big strategy is to play 15 yards off the ball.
Well, we did our no cliche keys that we do every Friday at 7:20. And I said, this is the game, even though Pete Carroll doesn't like this description about his defense, this is the bend, don't break day to face Josh Allen, make him consistently move the ball down the field against you. Don't give up the big play and let them score 7 points in 4 plays and 65-yard touchdown drives. So they kind of tried to do that, it felt like. And Josh Allen came through. But it didn't feel like a bend, don't break defense. It felt like a break, but don't break defense. The cushion was so enormous. It's like, what quarterback wouldn't succeed if you're going to give him that wide open of lanes to throw to his receivers? I mean, he'd completed 6 passes to 6 different receivers by about the 9-minute mark of the first quarter. I mean, he had everything he wanted to do, he could do. Yeah. You weren't taking anything away from him in the passing game.
Well, at halftime, I'm looking at my notes. I think at halftime, Allen had 280 yards passing at halftime. Yeah, which is it's gross, right? I mean, there's no there's no excuse for that whatsoever. It's almost as if the defensive coaches had no game plan whatsoever. Corners bailing out, Chuck. We saw that against Arizona. And Chris Collinsworth even mentioned that on the broadcast in the fourth quarter of that game. These guys are bailing out every single play. Obviously, the cliches, because they're concerned about getting beat deep over the top. But when you've got safeties like Adams, who you gave up 2 first-round draft picks for, and Quandre Diggs, who's supposed to be really good, why is that all of a sudden a concern? I mean, we were never concerned about that with Earl Thomas back there, because Earl Thomas was fast as hell and could close unlike any other safety in the NFL. So that's the disappointing thing for me, is that I would get that mentality and get that scheme if you had porous safeties on your defense. These safeties are not supposed to be porous. They're supposed to be among the best in the NFL. There's a reason why when they acquired Jamal Adams, Pro Football Focus said this was one of the best secondaries in the NFL. Partly because of the safeties they had. And look, maybe losing Marquise Blair is a bigger problem than we thought. Maybe not having Ugo Amadi is a bigger problem than we thought. But I just think the scheme is just killing these guys. And man, that 3rd and 16 play, and you guys have talked about it already on the show today, guys. Early fourth quarter, right? You're down 7, 27-20, and they got a 2nd and 20. A 3rd and 9 and a 3rd and 16. They overcome all 3 of them. You got a blitz by Ryan Neal. They're going to punt. I mean, at that point, they're out of field goal range and they're punting. And then Jamal Adams gets the obviously penalty downfield. They score a touchdown, and the game at that point felt like it was over. So it kind of felt like that flag by Jamal, coupled with the screenplay to John Brown, where if you go back and watch that play over again, which I know you guys have, and you'll watch it a bunch before tomorrow's show, there's nobody within 10 yards of John Brown. Nobody. I mean that Brian Dobble, is that his name? The offensive coordinator for the Bills, the play caller for Buffalo. So. He pants Ken Norton Jr. Absolutely pants Ken Norton Jr. And you have to say Pete Carroll in this game. We can't sit here on the air for 10 years and say, as long as Pete Carroll's here, the defense is his baby, and then not criticize them when the defense gets fleeced the way they did today. But I think two things. Look, obviously Pete Carroll has had way more success as a head coach in Seattle than Ken Norton's had as a defensive coordinator. He gets the benefit of the doubt, but a lot of this is also on Pete Carroll, especially whether right or wrong, whether he's making this up or not, to take some arrows for his coaching staff and fall on the sword for his coaching staff. He said he called that blitz on 3rd and 16. That led to that big play by Brown when there's nobody within 10 yards of the guy. So I just think it's appropriate after a game like this to kind of question all the coaches on defense, including the head coach.
Well, I think we even have to question Jamal Adams at this point. Yeah, he's made a lot of good plays. How many at the line of scrimmage and how many in the secondary? Yeah. 95% of them, of the plays that he's made, have been at the line of scrimmage. He's a safety, for goodness sake. It's he suddenly, even though you can tell he's a tremendous player, and I'm not losing any faith in the acquisition, and I can't wait to see how he develops and grows as the season goes along. But right now, you can't stop the other team from killing you in the pass game. And if he's not getting a sack, he's not helping you defensively.
Well, here's why I think it's fair to be concerned. And I know a lot of folks, and we're kind of dumbing this down, right? I get it. But a lot of folks are like, hey, you're 6-2. You probably still, even after today, have the MVP in the NFL in Russell Wilson. You should be concerned because we're not measuring ourselves against, everybody in the NFL, right? All the 31 other teams. We're measuring ourselves against the elite of the National Football League. We're measuring ourselves against New Orleans, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Baltimore, Arizona, Tampa, blah, blah, blah. Anybody who's got a shot of winning a Super Bowl is who the Seahawks are being measured against. And look, these guys will probably go 11-5, 12-4 when it's all said and done. Probably win the West when it's all said and done. Maybe get a bye when it's all said and done, if not a 2 or a 3 seed. Who knows, what that thing will look like. But can they beat Aaron Rodgers in the postseason with that defense? Can they beat Tom Brady in the postseason with that defense? Can they beat the Saints and Michael Thomas and Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara in the postseason with that defense? So right now, unless Russell Wilson has a balls-out MVP type game every single Sunday, I don't think they can. Now, look, let's give them a little bit of a break, see what happens when Harrison plays, when Dunlap gets his feet wet, when Kendricks is on board, when Shaquille's healthy, blah, blah, blah. maybe these guys are better. The question I have, guys, is how much better can they get? They're not as bad as they were today. There's no question about that, because that was the worst defensive performance in 11 years in Seahawks history. But I'm not sure how much better they are at the same time.
Well, they're not typically 4 turnovers bad either, and they didn't force any, by the way. So I mean, let's talk big picture here as we kind of wrap up, Chuck, because you got 2 losses now. You got a Cardinals team they're playing now. They're tied 14-14. They've got 2 losses, and you've got 2 games in the next 11 days. Both of them division games. One of them kind of tough against the Rams. One of them against a team that already beat you in the Cardinals. So how confident should we be feeling that they can come out of this this gauntlet part of the schedule before they get to play the NFC East and still be in a position to where they're leading the NFC West?
Well, I mean, you have to be concerned. I mean, it's got to be your alarms in the red over this defense. The one thing that gives you the one saving grace that you have is that you have the quarterback and you have the weapons that you can win these games. You can win shootouts relatively consistently in the National Football League. But to Softy's point, once you get to the postseason, yeah, you can win a shootout in the postseason against the Saints and win it 42-35. But can you win 3 of them in a row?
Yeah.
You really want to leave yourself only on one side of the football? I mean, it can be done. The Kansas City Chiefs had a dreadful defense a couple of years ago, the year that Patrick Mahomes nearly upset Brady and the Patriots in the AFC Championship game.
Right.
But they were playing much better defense than their season statistics indicated by the end of the year. So you just got to hope that there's growth and there's development. And I don't think that this defense ever has to be special, but it at least has to be decent. And obviously we're a long way away from that. So, yeah, you got some tough opponents coming up. They're going to put points on the board, and you're going to have to be ready to outscore just about everybody until the defense can show us otherwise. And I think most weeks they could probably do that, including against the Rams and the Cardinals in the next couple of weeks.
Well, you can – look, I mean, you mentioned the Chiefs a couple years ago that were a D4 offsides away from getting to a Super Bowl, right, for 2 years in a row. So they came close. The Falcons, I think, were like 26th in total defense when they almost won the Super Bowl against the Patriots, obviously, a few years ago. The Patriots, I think, won it with like the 28th rated defense in the NFL 10 or 11 years ago. So there's no question you can overcome it. I mean, my concern would be there's so much offense in the NFL now compared to even a couple years ago, right? I mean, everybody's throwing the ball 35, 40 times a game. It kind of feels like nobody's playing defense. So it does, feel all about the matchup. But I just think for me that this football team, the key for them, and you mentioned this, Chuck, about the running backs, and you said they were on their 3rd string running back today. They're really on their 4th string running back. Let's face it, because Chris Carson, Rashad Penny, Carlos Hyde were supposed to be your top 3 guys, and now they're throwing out DJ Dallas, Alex Collins, and Travis Homer. So they've gone 6 deep at running back so far this year. I never thought it would be worse than DEFCON 1 a year ago when they signed Robert Turbin and Marshawn Lynch off the street, but it's getting pretty close. Right now, this is now the 2nd time in the last, 10, 11 months where they've had to, kind of, scour the freaking bottom of the freaking ocean for running backs for this football team. So they've got to get Carson healthy, or Carlos Hyde, or Rashad Penny. They don't have any answer at running back. I'm on the, Twitter during the game, and I'm watching all these people talk about the lack of balance for the Seahawks offense. They want to run the ball. Well, run the ball with who? What are you talking about? DJ Dallas, Travis Homer, Alex Collins, 2 weeks ago was serving beers at a restaurant, whatever the hell. I have no idea what he was doing. So there's nobody there that can do that right now. And then when your defense getting pushed around where they are, you have no choice but to toss the ball. So I think those guys getting healthy maybe is the key to this entire thing, honestly, because the only way they'll chew up clock is by running the ball, or at least giving the appearance that they can run the ball. And the defense is getting tired. They need a blow. They're not good enough to go out there every 5 minutes and keep, turning themselves over and over again. So they got to find a way to start running the ball on offense. They got to get these guys healthy, man. Have to.
44-34 ends up the final score. Seahawks drop to 6-2. Softy and Chuck, I'm sure you both have plenty more thoughts. Softy, you come on the air at 3 o'clock. Chuck, bright and early up.
My whole lot
That's it.
That's it. You're done. All right. Well, we'll just replay this then. That'll be good. Chuck,
me just toss in one more thing. So
Yeah.
you mentioned the sacks. I think somebody mentioned the sacks today, how it didn't feel like the Hawks had that kind of a game, right?
No.
With the sacks and the quarterback hits on Josh Allen. They had, 5 sacks today? Is that right? The Seahawks had 5 sacks?
I think 6.
I thought it was 7. Yeah.
You know what? Let's give them 8. What the hell?
5 to 7.
5 of them were on scoring drives for Buffalo. So the sacks are great, but then when you're giving up 20 yards or 30 yards on 2nd and 27, 2 plays later, what the hell's the difference, right?
Yeah, it was 7 sacks.
They got to be able to finish these drives. And, man, it's frustrating as hell watching Buffalo be in these situations that you want to be in on defense. Thank you. You want to be in 3rd and long. You want to be in 2nd and long. These are situations the Seahawks coaches want themselves to be in, and it doesn't matter. And that's sucking the life out of me. 2nd and 20, 3rd and 15, 2nd and 15, 3rd and 20. Doesn't matter. So they've got to find a way to make those things matter, because they didn't matter today.
We got our own fact checkers. I believe that's Kevin Shockey back there. Thanks to Shockey. Thanks to you guys. Thanks to Jason Puckett. Thanks to Dick Fain. Thanks to Curtis Crabtree. Thanks to Hugh Millen, everybody who came on, everybody watching. This is the 12th Man Postgame Show presented by Steel Dealers. Real steel. Find yours. Visit your local steel dealer today. We'll be on the air tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock with Chuck and Buck in the morning. And Hugh Millen will be joining for Monday Morning Quarterback at 7:20. Mike Holmgren at 9 o'clock. That'll be in the morning show. That'll be the next time you hear from us. So thanks for tuning in to the 12th Man Postgame Show presented by Steel Dealers. Thanks, Kevin Shockey. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, everybody. Go Hawks.
Peace.